This episode, like all episodes, is brought to you by our beloved Patreon donors. So this week, we'd like to thank Melanie, Sabrina, and Elsa. And an extra special thanks this week to Hannah. Hannah is a successfully executed multi-factor Excel formula. Hello.
Hi. Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Let me ask it in my sexy voice.
The sexy voice.
So whenever I actually listen back to our podcast, every time I'm struck by the feeling, nay, the surety.
The surety.
That I'm capable of not sounding like a harpy made out of vocal fry. And I'm like, I often employ this voice when I am like reading to someone.
Yes.
If I'm reading out loud, that I'm like, I really want you to hear how beautiful it is. So I'll modulate my voice a little bit to be more pleasing. But then I just get really excited about something.
Listen, I think intentional voice modulation is for opera singers and the Theranos girl.
As I keep calling her in my household Elizabeth Theranos.
We are not Elizabeth Holmes, so we're not going to talk like this.
But here's a challenging question. Why aren't we?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and I have a world-changing idea.
That is insane that your name is Elizabeth because my name also is Elizabeth.
What? You should be played by Amanda Seyfried in a movie or something.
Amanda Seyfried is like...
She's so precious.
She's like my celebrity crush.
She looks just like you, so...
Are you coming on to me? That's such a compliment. I do not look like Amanda Seyfried at all. Right now, people who are only listening to the podcast are immediately going to check out our YouTube to see.
And they're going to be
so disappointed.
They're going to say I'm right.
No.
When you need some dough, you don't know where to go in this patriarchal capitalist hellscape. Well, here's the sitch. We're gonna help you, sis, because bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. And so can you.
Excuse me. I'm not sorry. I'm Piggy.
And I'm Kitty.
We're the bitches in Bitches Get Riches.
We're a couple of Spaniards on a mission of revenge.
And we want our father back, you son of a biche.
Our time on this planet is limited.
So let's get started.
Okay. Today's letter comes to us from a friend of Ducky's. Ducky is our amazing producer. Shout out to Ducky.
Hey, Ducky.
We fucking love you.
Thank you. Never leave us.
Okay, so Ducky's friend asks, I moved in with my partner recently after dating for just a few months. We have no plans to get married or share bank accounts. How do we financially navigate being more than roommates, but not quite spouses?
Ugh, I love this question. I feel like we have become sort of secret experts on the sharing of finances among people who are not necessarily a romantic partner. In this economy.
Or not formally, like not married.
Right. Non-married folk. And mostly that's because we recognize the difficulties of getting by on one income in this capitalist hellscape in which we live. The rent is
that's
high.
hard?
Yeah, believe it or not.
I'm just swimming around in my swimming pool filled with $500 bills. They make those, right?
They sure do, and I would know.
They make them for me. I just go to the printer and I ask.
You have them specially minted? Love it.
I do. And they give me mints.
And they give you mints at the mint.
Yeah, Andy's mints. They're very, very, very classy.
You and I shared finances for quite some time.
We were roomies for a long time.
And I think that...
Roomies with benefits. And the benefits are financial.
The benefits are we had the same size feet, so we could share shoes.
My God, I miss it so much.
Right?
I don't have any other friends who are straddling the 7.5 to 8 size, and I am so bereft.
I am bereft as well. It really is a shame. And honestly, when I like moved out of our college apartment, like the first time I had to dress up for something, I went in my closet and was like, wait, where are all my high heels? And then I was like, oh, right, I don't own any high heels. My point being, when we lived together and we shared finances, a lot of it was based on a mutual respect. And I think that that's essential in any roommate relationship, but especially in a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
In romance, you don't want romance. You don't want to disrespect your partner by condescending to them or patronizing to them or valuing their contribution to the household less.
Or mooching.
Or mooching.
No moochie.
One of the 7 deadly
No moochie
sins.
if you want the coochie.
Ooh.
TM, copyright.
Yep.
I copyrighted it.
Bitchesgetriches.com. No moochie if you want the coochie. Yes, that is our new tagline. Like when we lived together, you had a higher paying job than me.
Yeah.
And you therefore bought all of our groceries. I loved our little trips to Trader Joe's together. In return, I kind of just quietly did all the dishes because I was afraid you'd notice you were spending money, all the grocery money, and that way, like that was my way of being like, I appreciate you, but I also cannot afford to pay for food.
Okay, so your memory is faulty. Because
is it?
this was something we discussed.
Oh, we discussed
This is 100% our
God.
arrangement. Because you came to me one day and told me that you
cannot
felt
afford
guilty
food.
over the fact that the majority of the food that was being purchased was coming from me. And I was like, do you see how there's no dishes in the sink? Do you think I am the cause of there being no dishes in the sink? And you were like, no, I know that I am the dish doer. And I was like, exactly. This is perfect for me. And this has never changed about me. I feel like everyone has some household task that they hate above all others. For me, it has always been the dishes. I married a beautiful man with very wide set eyes who does all of the dishes, and I could not be any happier. He's the perfect spouse. So
Cool.
I think there's a lot of
making me more noble in reality than I was in my memory. I thought I was getting away with something.
It's not that you're noble, it's that you're incapable of carrying an emotional burden without at some point heaving it up. I think this is a nice kind of allusion to one of the ways in which you can divide things, which is non-monetary. So there's ways that you can divide things monetarily. And I think the major ways to do that are do everything 50-50, completely equal, or you do it adjusted based on income. If one of you earns $100,000 a year and one of you earns $50,000 a year, I think that's pretty icky. Maybe that would not make me feel great if I was asking my partner to pay the same amount when I knew that money was more precious to them.
Exactly.
So there's different ways that you can do that, but then there's also lots of non-monetary ways that you can negotiate between each other. Who's cleaning, who's cooking, and are those worth something to you? And I think it's really important in both in a roommate relationship, which is true for whether the partnership is fundamentally a romantic or a non-romantic one. In a roommate relationship, it's really, really important to talk all of the time. So as long as we have been married, still within the last month, we have had a discussion about chores and like formally splitting up like, hey, I've noticed that like since I retired, that has changed my daily schedule. It's given me a lot more time back to do things like run errands. And I'm like, it's silly for you to go to the post office. Like, just give me something and I will take it there. I have the free time, you do not. So it's a constant like reevaluation. And as your levels of stress change, as your job changes, as you pick up new hobbies that adjust your schedule and your energy
your
level,
health
like
changes.
constantly, yes, absolutely, like constantly be reevaluating and open to saying like, hey, here's what I'm willing to do. Here's what I would love to not have to do, and like let's negotiate. And that I think is more so even than splitting finances is going to be the major thing that you run into.
100%. Constantly check in with each other. And the other thing too is there's no, you don't have to stick to a strategy. Like, you don't have to say like, okay, everything is split 50-50. You can say like, all right, well, we have cable because you want to watch your sports ball on the thing, which I humble brag, I finally convinced Bear that we don't need a television package anymore. So we cut the cable. It is now only streaming services. And I thank the NFL for making the Patriots available online for saving us that money. Anyway.
I love it. He's moved from an honorary baby boomer all the way down into like at least an old millennial now. That's incredible.
Yeah,
good for him.
When we had cable, I was like, I'm not paying for this. Like, I don't use this. And I was much more, again, respectful and gentle and diplomatic about it. But we agreed, like, that was something that was on him, and he would pay for it, and that was fine.
I think it's kind of important to mention that there's nothing wrong with having the breakdown end up feeling a little bit lopsided. Like, it's okay if one person is paying most of the bills and another person is doing most of the cleaning. I think especially, we don't know any of the genders of the folks involved, but I'll say in romantic relationships, I think sometimes I have felt in the past some sensitivity as a woman about like I feel an extra layer of resentment if I am, for example, cleaning up after messy roommates who are mostly men. I'm like, it's not that you are messy because you're men, but am I cleaning because I'm a woman?
Yes,
and it
absolutely.
feels really bad. So like, I think there's a lot of emotional stuff that can come up when you're breaking down things. And
it's just important to be sensitive to those emotional baggage and those gender roles, especially if you're an opposite gender couple.
You have to come up with something that works for you as a couple, and you have to constantly renegotiate it.
Investing newbies, this one's for you. Acorns is a micro-investing app for helpless babies.
It is a great option for beginning investors and anyone having a hard time saving because it is automatic and totally effortless.
Here's how she works. Every time you make a purchase, Acorns will round it up to the nearest dollar and not only save the difference for you, but invest it in the stock market. It is that simple.
Click the link in the show notes to start investing small with Acorns today.
Click.
You're welcome. So the question asker wanted to know about some of the financial aspects of how to split things up. And I think there's fundamentally like 3 different ways that you can split finances with someone that you live with, whether that's a romantic partner or otherwise. So the first is to do everything 50-50. Our rent is $2,000 a month. You pay $1,000, I pay $1,000. Boom, done. Very simple. And I think that this is often the best model for like roommates who aren't friends, aren't like, not romantic partners. I think that can work really well. Yeah. The second one I think is dividing things up based on income. This I think is a lot more common in romantic relationships, or maybe like roommates who happen to be like deep and long-term friends with each other. It comes from a place of real respect.
Or if there's like a noticeable difference in bedrooms among roommates.
Hey, don't steal my number 3. You're stealing my number 3.
Sorry.
Shut it down.
Sorry.
Sit in your corner.
I
love
in
you.
the corner. I love it.
So if you split it up according to how much money everyone is making, if one of you is making $25,000 a year and the other one is making $100,000 a year, it does not feel very cool to say, cool, let's split everything 50-50. Like that's not right. So with couples like that, especially where there's a big income disparity, I often see them deciding to split things up based on like, well, I make 4 times the amount of money that you do, so I should pay 4 times the amount of rent, utilities, things like that, which, some people love that. Some people hate it. It really comes down to the person. The third one is kind of based on usage. So this I've done more with roommates where like one bedroom was like big and square and another bedroom is like L-shaped and cramped and kind of awful. It's like, well, yeah, we're both in a 2-bedroom, but if we place these rooms on the open market, could we expect someone to want to pay $700 for this room and $700 for this room? Like,
Right.
no. We would more be looking at maybe $800 and $600. So that's what we end up doing. You can do that too with utilities if one person needs a faster internet connection, or if they want a special like live TV package or something, or if they're coming in with a bajillion streaming passwords, like great, you can renegotiate that. You and I negotiated with food as well, so
Yeah.
there's always that option to scale based on usage. I also see that a lot in relationships where if one person has dietary stuff, special dietary stuff, where maybe if you have a diet that is kind of more expensive to work around, then I know adjusting in that way is pretty popular. So I think those are kind of the 3 most basic ways to divide finances.
So there's always a 4th way. And it's to not divide finances. It's to essentially combine finances and, like join those accounts and get it all set with the bank. And I would really caution people from doing that in a situation where you are not immediate legal family. I think that there is a lot of hassle and complication with combining finances, especially if it's not a like guaranteed long-term cohabitation situation. That's a huge decision to combine those finances, and I know a lot of people who have really regretted that decision, and not just because they got divorced or broke up eventually. So I would say, like, if you're making this decision, like, err on the side of not combining those things, unless and until you know that you have some legal protections in place for long-term combining your life in other ways.
So we have a pretty recent article that talks about different ways to do this. It is called A Guide to Sharing Finances with Someone Other Than a Romantic Partner. It's inclusive of it involves strategies that you could also employ with a romantic partner, especially maybe like a newer relationship where you're not 100% like ready to go all in together financially. I will say there's a lot that you can do without combining finances fully, that is still on the table. So, for example, Ducky's friend mentions that they don't want to merge their finances, but did you know you can open a shared bank account without being married?
So another aspect of sharing finances or navigating finances when you are cohabitating with somebody who is not a spouse is, what do you do about the stuff? So, I mean, the stuff, yeah. The junk. Who buys the couch and who takes the couch when you guys move out from being together, from living together, who buys the kitchen table, who buys the sheets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that there's not necessarily a one-to-one, like, I bought it, I take it with me calculation. Like, that can be your calculation, and that's totally fine. But, it could also be like, well, I brought X in and you brought Y in, and then we bought Z together. So if we break up or if we stop cohabitating, let's sell Z and divide the profits among ourselves. Like, there's the profits. Yeah. There's a number of ways to do that. I think, again, the whole crux of this answer is communication and respect. And you need to approach the question with your roommate, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, non-binary partner with a level of respect and care that you would expect to receive from them in the communication. So, like, don't assume that they are thinking the same thing. Don't assume that they are deliberately being controlling or bitter or unfair about something. Like, just talk about it.
Yeah, I think the major advantage of living with someone before you choose to get legally tied to each other is that you have the advantage to test the waters when it comes to sharing.
Try them out. It's a trial run for a more permanent union.
You go out to dinner with your pals and you notice there's that one pal who's like never really coming through for you the way that you've come through for them, you probably don't choose to become a roommate with them. And that's very smart. When you are dating someone, you are constantly testing that person to see, like, can we work through a conflict? Can we communicate? Can we be forthcoming about our values and what's important to us? You're always testing that. And ideally, the stakes will rise slowly over time so that by the time you're getting to things that are really high stakes, like having children, things like that, you have already figured out how to kind of navigate a lot of those things on a smaller scale. So I encourage you to think about it this way. When you're moving in with a romantic partner, let's say that you move in together and you both go in 50-50 on first month, last month, and security deposit. Let's say you do that. And then over time you realize, like, ooh, this is not the person for me. I should not be with this person. I'm gonna end this and we're gonna move out.
Bed, and there's crumbs
They're bad
everywhere.
people. If you get to the point where you're ready to end things with that person and you're ready to move out and you run into a lot of issues with them giving you back the portion of the money that you put in, because maybe the check went to them and you're like, all right, I need half of the last month's and half of the security deposit back. It's entirely possible that you will never see that money again. And in that case, I want you to always be able to say that was money well spent. To say, I lost this money, but what I gained was the knowledge that this person could not be trusted, to be respectful of me, that they were poor with conflict management. Like, there's so many lessons that I would pay a lot of money to learn about someone up front.
It's the breakup tax.
Yeah. So don't jump into buying a house 50-50 and just hope and pray that things are going to work out. Use this cohabitation time as a time to see, is this person responsible with their money? Are they communicative? Are they willing to work with me with conflict resolution? And are they respectful?
I feel like that's a good litmus test. If you guys have a conversation respectfully, as we have discussed, and you decide on how you're going to split your finances in an equitable fashion that everyone agrees on, and then they slowly start going back on that deal, or they immediately disrespect parameters and start, spending your money willy-nilly or not sharing or otherwise taking advantage of you, that's a good sign to you of oh, maybe this relationship should not progress. Maybe the way that they are treating my money is indicative of the way that they feel about me, and I should excise them from my life. I should cut them from my life.
Cut them. One of the ways in which you and I were really successful as roommates who are also friends, and now are business partners and a bunch of random other
Work
things,
wives.
is that we have very clear conversations about hey, can roommate Lauren talk to roommate Jess for just a hot second. And that made it really clear that whatever I'm going to say to
Completely
you,
changes the vibe.
It's not about who you are as a person. I just super need you to put the toilet paper so that it comes over the front instead of dangling out from the bottom, please. So I think it's a great suggestion to have regular, if not meetings or discussions. They don't have to be formal, but I actually think at the beginning, especially, formal is really good.
Yeah.
And so have you ever heard of the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse?
No, please enlighten me.
So
I love a biblical reference.
It's a relationship model, thinking about the 4 things that are most likely to lead to the end of a relationship. And those 4 things are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And I think out of all of those, for me, the most critical one is contempt. Once you feel contempt for someone, it is really, really, really hard to come back from that and get back to the opposite, which is respecting them. I think, especially for our younger listeners who maybe are moving in with a significant other for the first time or the second time, it may be a period of growth for you to come into a new level of comfort with embracing conflict and trying to seek a healthy resolution rather than kind of bottling it up. I think, you and I had lived with other people where we knew we were going to be living together for one school year and that we would then likely never see that person again. And it made it a lot easier to just say,
there's a lot you can withstand for 2 semesters.
For a year, 100%. Like, we could just say, like, oh my God, the fact that she does this drives me nuts, but I'm not going to say anything because we've just got 4 more months to go and I can live with it for 4 more months.
Do you remember the girl who blew her nose into the sink?
Stop.
I'm so sorry.
You know that I
I'm
deliberately buried that memory.
Expunged that from your brain.
God, I'm so upset with you for reviving this memory that I had intentionally buried. But yes, I do remember that. And yes, it was fucking awful.
Yeah.
Like if that person was someone who I was madly in love with and this was the only thing that they did, I would have a conversation with them about it where I would say, do not ever fucking do that, you disgusting piece of shit. Healthy relationships.
Violence is the answer.
It's worth it. It's worth it to have that conversation. So you may be coming at this from a perspective of someone who had really smart, strategic reasons for not pursuing conflict. That's changing, baby. Like, this is all different. Now that you are living with someone, you have a chance to possibly be living with this person for forever. So if you do that, like, eventually that contempt is going to rise up. And that is not good. It's so nearly impossible to recover from. So yeah, I think having those conversations early, often, articulating your needs, thinking about what's worth pursuing and what's worth just like letting go of. I think those are all really valuable. Yeah. And the money, I think, is actually the easiest part.
Yeah. The money, if you figure out the relationship bit, you get the respect and communication down, the money will follow.
Yeah.
It's really like, I would hate to see, and it happens all the time, but I would hate to see a good relationship fall apart because of money issues. And I know that that's, like, statistically speaking, one of the leading causes of divorce. And again, that makes me so sad because if you figure out how to communicate honestly and respectfully and, avoid the 4 horsemen of the end of a relationship, apparently, the money is easy to figure it out. You'll get it done. You'll be fine.
Fundamentally, I think there are 3 things that make for a fantastic romantic partner. Are they a good friend? Are they a good roommate? And are they a good lover? And for everyone in every relationship, the importance of those individual things may be different. For some, it's really, really, really important that, like, good lover, that's like the number one, but they're super chill and they're like, I don't super care what you're like as a roommate as long as, like, you're hitting a bare minimum, I'm good. So having that kind of discussion about, like, what is most important to you in the relationship, what aspects of your relationship are most important. My partner and I have discussed that the order is, for us, that we have to be great friends, and then we have to be great roommates, and then we have to be great lovers, because fundamentally the most important things to us are being each other's best friend. And if a situation happened where we lived apart, or maybe one of us had some horrible medical condition or accident where, like, sex was totally off the table for us, we could still have an incredibly fulfilling and very romantic relationship for the rest of our lives if the only thing we were to each other was each other's best friends. So kind of understanding what the priorities are in your relationship are really important. So having and like living together is what's going to let you build an understanding of what each of you want out of life and out of each other as partners. Yeah. So you just got to roll with it.
Fucking roll with it. Are you good with that?
I am good with that. Listeners, if you want us to answer your question, go to bitchesgetriches.com and click Ask the Bitches. Our goal here at Bitches Get Riches is to help people, but we want to make a living wage for ourselves and our assistant doing so without being like a total piece of shit sellout. So if you believe in that mission and you want to help us achieve it, the easiest way to do that is to go to patreon.com/bitchesgetriches. We also accept one-time donations through paypal.com/paypalme/bitchesgetriches. And if you need more of our spicy wisdom, you can read our articles and follow us on social media, and you can do all that stuff at bitchesgetriches.com. Hey, is there anything else they should know?
Yes. Okay, so I had COVID several weeks ago, and in my fevered delirium, I thought it'd be a really good idea to take all of the books off of my bookshelves and rearrange them by color. And I was like covered in like fevered flop sweat by the end of this because books became so heavy because I had COVID and I was very sick, and I finished it, and then I stood back and I looked, and it looked fucking terrible.
Got it. So what you're saying is everyone should arrange books by color all the time, preferably with a fever-addled mind.
That
Good
is
to know.
Absolutely.
Bitches out. I'm leaving.